We're going to take a little bit of time and walk through Google Forms together. As you're watching this video, please keep in mind the end product for this section. You're going to create a form that you can use in your work. So start to think about what you might do and what information you might want to gather from people. Let's start out by creating a new form. I'm going to go up to the top and type in forms.new. When I type in forms.new and click enter, you can see a new form pops up. I want to start out by titling my form. And when I title my form up at the top and click right here, it'll bring that same title. You can adjust that if you want to, but I'm just going to leave it the way that it is. You can see that the layout of Google Forms is pretty simple. You have some tools over here on the right, and if you mouse over them, it tells you what that tool does. You'll notice there's also some icons along the top, and as well, there is a large send button. We will get to all of these parts as we move our way through the video. We're going to start out by adding a question. You'll notice that Google already has one untitled question for me here, so I'm going to use that one. So I'm going to start the way that I start a lot of my forms. I'm going to ask the person for their name. The reason that I often do this is when students are completing the form, you can capture their email address. But when I was teaching, I had 160 students and I couldn't keep track of whose user ID was whose because it doesn't make logical sense. So for me, I always start out my forms by asking what someone's name is. If you want to make an anonymous form, you would obviously leave this out or ask another sort of identifier that doesn't have a name. All of those are great options. So you can keep this as either a short answer or make it a paragraph. I don't want people writing too much in here, so I'm going to keep it a short answer. And I want to make it a required question, so I don't want people to be able to skip this question. So we can see if we go up here to the preview, I can see what my form is going to look like. So right now it says, what is your name? And there's a submit button. So after the person types in their name, they click submit, and that's the end of the form. So that will be helpful to us because we'll start getting more and more submissions, and that will give us some data to look at. So the next thing I want to do is add another question. And when I'm building questions, I oftentimes use logic or the option that is called go to section based on answer. So if I go down into these three dots down here and turn on go to section based on answer, this only works with multiple choice and drop down sort of questions. You can't do it with a fill in the blank sort of option. You also can't do it with multiple select. So you can see I made a question stem and I put 3 distractors here. Each one of these distractors has an option to go to a specific section based on the answer. So if someone picks gray, I might click that I want them to immediately submit the form. These other two, however, I want it to go to a separate set of questions. The way that I typically do this is by creating another section, and I call these sections the name of the distractor. So I'll call this one blue, and I'll call this one pink. So now I'll go back up to my initial question and match up blue with blue and pink with pink. So if I go down to my blue section, I will add an image of a blue sky. And in my pink section, I'll do the same, but a pink sky. So you can see I have the option to add images into Google Forms. I can also add videos. So you'll see one of the options here is to add video. You can do that as well. You might want to consider adding an image title here. You can also make some changes for how your image looks. You'll notice that these ones are very big. I maybe don't want them that big, so I'll make it a little bit smaller and then center the image. So I'll do the same thing with this one. So I've got this pretty well set up. So now I have the image. I want to add one more question. So I'm making this a math question, and I am going to make it into a paragraph so that people can write about it. I'll make it a required question. And then in the pink section, I'll add another question as well. But this time I'm going to make a different kind of questions. This is a file upload question. And these kind of questions can be great if you have students doing some work. So let's say I had my students completing some math questions, but I wanted them to do it on paper so I could see their thinking. I might have them complete the work on their papers and then take a picture of it and upload it into my Google form. So I'll click continue here, and this will start setting the parameters of the question. So here I might say upload your paper work showing 8 plus 9. So I've given the STEM, I told students what I want them to do, and I want to limit this to specific kinds of files. So I want to say students could record a video and students could send me an image, but those are really the only ones I want to get from them. The maximum number of files, I only want them sending me one, and I don't want huge files. So I'll say that 1 megabyte is the biggest amount that I want to accept. I don't want kids trying to send me all sorts of other things. So we'll make this a required question. So let's take a second and preview what we've done so far. We'll go up to the eyeball, and we will get to see what is going on in the form. So I'm going to type my name again. And I remember that gray will automatically go to submit, so I'm not going to do that one. Let's do the pink one. We'll go to next. You can see here's my pink sky, and this is how I would upload that file. So just like uploading on anything, I can either drag the file in or I can search for it. I can do it out of my drive, so if I uploaded the file right to my Google Drive, I could do that. I can also upload from my device. So if students are using an iPad or their phone or anything else, they can still do this. So you'll notice that I have my blue section, and right now it's set to go to the next section after someone completes the blue section. That is not what I would like. So what I'll do is change this so that it goes to submit form. So if I choose blue here and then complete the blue section, it'll go right to the submission. So the person won't have to complete blue and then pink. Let's take a couple seconds to look through the settings of Google Forms. So if I click on this gear up here, this will take me into the Google settings. So if I want to collect email addresses, I can click this. If I want to restrict it only to Charleston County people, I can click this. This is something that you can leave. However, the one instance, I mean, there's probably more than this, but the one that we run into a lot is if you're going to send a Google form to your students' parents to get information about them, be sure that you uncheck this one, because if you leave this, the only people who will be able to respond are children who have parents that work for CCSD or your school district. You can also limit to one response. If you want to make it so that students can only complete this once, you can check that box. They have to be logged in, and it'll collect their email since I've clicked that as well. You can also make the option for people to edit after you submit, and that they might be able to see the charts and the text responses. I don't typically do this one, especially if you're using it in a quiz capacity. That might be something you want to do or something you might not want to do. It's completely up to you. If we go along the top to the presentation, you can show a progress bar, you can shuffle the question order. One thing that I do a lot is ensure that this is unchecked. We don't want people to submit another response, and you'll notice that this is grayed out. Do you know why? We said that people can only do one response, so Google's automatically going to not make that an option. But if I uncheck this and go to presentation, you'll see you can make it so that people can submit another response. There are good reasons to have that, but if I'm doing this with students, unless I want them setting up more and more responses, I usually leave that unchecked because kids have a tendency to click and then do more. Another thing I like to change is the confirmation message. So by default, it's going to say your response has been recorded, but I can put all sorts of things in here, and I can also put links. So if after you have your students complete something and if you wanted them to go grab a book and read for a half hour, you could write that. You could also have them link to an article or a video that you want them to work with. You could do that too. So you can really customize this to say whatever you need it to say. The final thing up here is quizzes. So you can turn Google Forms into quizzes. Google Forms will grade the quiz for you and give you a score. It'll also give the students a score, which is really nice. Just like a lot of other quiz grading programs, it can't do subjective things. So if it's a text response, it won't be able to do that. But anything that's objective, it can absolutely do. You'll notice if I turn this on, one of the new options is making it locked on Chromebooks. So if your students use Chromebooks, you can lock this so that when they get into your form, they can't leave. So that way they wouldn't be able to open up a new tab and Google something else. You have a lot of options for what you can do and what students can see while you're making it a form quiz. But I'm going to leave them all like this. I'm going to click Save, and then let's go in and take a peek at how that works. So if I go to this, what color is the sky, you'll notice that now there's this answer key option. So if I click on that, it takes me out of the question editing mode and takes me into the quiz mode. So I'll assign 1 point here, and then I'm going to tell Google what the correct answer is. And I'm going to say pink because it's evening, and so we'll make it pink. You wouldn't necessarily want to do this for a question like this because all of these are correct answers, just depending on what the weather is doing or what time of day it is. But I just use this as an example, so bear that in mind. So I'm going to go back to the editing, and you can see this green check here tells me that I've set the correct answer here. Another thing to keep in mind that actually probably should have told you is that you can also set answer feedback. So see this call out here? So I can say if students get an answer incorrect, I can write a message. I can also link to an article perhaps that they might need to read or a video that they could watch to help them get a better sense of why that answer is incorrect. I can also do the same thing for correct answers. So that's something else that is nice that runs inside the quizzes. What I want to show you is how to send this to people and how to see the responses. So I'm going to go up here to the big white thing that says send. And there are a couple of options for how you send this to people to respond. And we'll talk about how to send this to someone you want to collaborate with on a form. That's not this. So this is for if you create this quiz and it's for your students, how do you send it to them? So you can put in email addresses. So I could copy and paste a whole group of email addresses right here. There is a benefit to doing that. Google will track who's done it and who hasn't done it, so that can be a really good management system for you. Another way you can do it that I often end up doing is going to this link here, and you can actually shorten it by clicking this box. This link is the link to the public side of the form, so the one that people would take. So if I open up a new tab and paste this link in, oh, haha. So here's something funny to keep in mind. I did not know this would do this. If you have Chromebook management locking on, you can't do it outside of a managed Chromebook. So I'm actually go in and turn that off. So here I go, turn that off and click save. So once I do that, I'm going to refresh this. And it turns it right back on. So the nice thing is it's easy to make adjustments and it updates pretty much immediately. If you do something like that with your students, just ask them to refresh. So click this little arrow and it'll refresh their browser. So that is the link that I got out of here by clicking shorten. So that'll take me right to the quiz. Another thing to keep in mind that back on this email one, so if I'm pasting in email addresses, I can also click the include form in the email so people don't have to click a link to get to the form. So that's something to keep in mind. That might work really well with parents. You'll notice down here that there's a link that says add collaborators. I'm going to show you another way to get to this, but notice that this is here. So collaborators is the thing where someone's going to help you build a form. So if I go up to these three dots here in the more menu, this is where I can click add collaborators. If I wanted someone to collaborate on this form with me, this is where I would add their information. So this is a little bit different than other Google files. You'll notice back up in the three dots, I can also make copies of forms. So if I want to have a form, set one up, make a copy of it, and use it for something else, I can definitely do that. We're going to talk about responses. So I said that there was one response because I already did this once for us. So you can see Google is already making bar graphs. So this is really helpful. These can be really powerful as conversations with your class, and you can copy these out and put them into your presentation, or you can just open this up on your panel. But I can go through and it will tell me all the things that have been submitted. You'll notice that I can do it by summary, according to questions like item analysis, and then by individuals, and then I can print those if I need to send that to parents. A way that people often use, and I use this all the time, is by creating a spreadsheet for it. So if you click this green and then click create, it'll generate a spreadsheet and all of the responses will go here, and then you can use this and manipulate the data however you need to. So I'm back in the edit version of the form. So if you want your students to submit to your form for about a half hour and then you don't want them to anymore, you can just turn this right off and it'll say it's no longer accepting responses. And just like before, you can customize this message. So I could say something like, "You missed this quiz. If you would like to make it up, please come talk to me." The last thing I want to show you about Google Forms is this customizing theme up here. So by default, it'll be this purple color, but you can change the top, so you can add an image. So if I go into illustrations, there are illustrations for all sorts of stuff. So I can pick whatever I want. And if I click on this candy corn, you'll notice it'll change the theme. So I can make little adjustments to the theme here. I can also change the font style. But once I do that, if I click on preview, oh wait, this won't work. Let me turn responses back on so you can see. You can see it brings that image in and changes the color of it. So it's a really quick transition to make it look sort of fancy without you having to do a whole lot of work. You can also do upload images. So if you have an image of your class that you wanted to put on here, you could absolutely do that too. So that was a really quick overview of Google Forms. There are lots of other options and other ways that you can use Google Forms. So feel free to take some time and explore forms on your own. Your next step is to create your own form that you can use in your work, ensure that it's something that you'll get at least 5 responses on, and send that to the people you want information from. You'll use the responses in this sheet, just like we looked at, in your next module.